All right, what's up everybody? I know it's been an incredibly long time since I've done one of these videos, and there's like a legit probably 5 to 10% of like my general audience that has been very patiently waiting for another one of these. I see it in basically every video. I read through all the comments still. I can't get back to all of them, but every video I see one of those comments that's like, when are you doing another vlog style video? So I appreciate you waiting a year and a half, and I understand your patience because it had been so long that I went to go charge these mics up and it wouldn't even let me charge them because I needed to update them first. So last night I basically went down to my office, set these both in the outlet to get them charged. This one, which is the transmitter, I believe, was totally fine to charge, but the receiver, which is the one behind the lens on the camera, wouldn't even allow me to charge it till I updated it. And at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, it's probably been a little bit too long. So basically, what we're doing today is going through the first official episode, I'd say, of the new full body, pretty much everyday series. I don't know what to call it, but it's basically a full body everyday series, training 5 times a week, all full body sessions. And what I want to do is film about one of these per week and take you through the full workout vlog style. These will probably be 50 minutes to an hour plus each episode, and I'm going to rotate through which workout we go through each week. So you can expect about one of these a week, and it will be a new workout each week for 5 weeks, and it will repeat for as long as I do this process for. My initial goal is about 2 months, and who knows, it could go on way longer if it works well. I don't see why I wouldn't continue it. So basically my goal with these episodes is to treat them as a mix between a workout and a Q&A. So it will be basically a live training session with me answering questions intermittently as I'm going through my rest period. So we'll start off with the workout. The workout for today is going to start off with some pause, close grip Smith bench press. Again, not something that I would pick as my primary lift in an ideal world if I could only pick 1 or 2 lifts, but when I have a press to do every day, I have to get a little bit creative and choose things that I wouldn't normally pick, right? So next one is going to be a seated T-bar row. You guys have seen this machine. You've seen me do it a handful of times. Marketplace steel, we'll go over that in a second. Smith behind the neck press, I'll go over a couple cues and some non-performance related progressions that I like to focus on for that. We're gonna go for some strict hammer curls on the cable behind you here, and incline push downs I'm getting back to. They're pretty hard after you haven't done them since the road to 18-inch arms, not gonna lie, so I'm a little weaker on them, but I'm holding my own. We're gonna do some calf raises too. Got some new shoes purely for calf training, so that's gonna be pretty sick. But either way, let's start off with some close grip Smith press. These are going to be minimally edited as well, so stuff like this is going to make the cut or else I'd drive myself nuts. Maybe I'll get an editor, but who knows. That should be fine, huh? The only thing I don't like about my Smith machine is that it doesn't have counterweights. So there's two parts to that, basically. It makes it so I don't have to load as much weight up because it's a much heavier bar. It's a 60-pound bar. But then again, it's a pain to adjust. So for my close grip, it's basically just closer than what I typically do. I'm not the tallest guy, but I have a very wide wingspan. So I usually go a little bit wider, pinkies on the rings. But for this, I just look at the knurling, lengthen out my thumbs like this, grab the edge of the knurling, and then wherever my hands lie, that's my grip. So that's how I know what a close grip is for me personally, and you can obviously experiment as well. As long as I don't hit the mic, I think we're good. All right, little clearance there. And I hope that's not too loud. I guess I'll see when oh, where'd my plates go? Oh, I got lazy. Put them on the pull down. Alright, so for warm-ups, I personally don't warm up too much. I usually just do basically what I'd call kind of like a general kind of get warm, get some blood flow going set. That's basically what I just did. Obviously kind of light. In this case, maybe not optimal, I guess, but It allows me to just get some blood flow going if I haven't gotten it already, get generally warm in that area, and then I'll do one more set after that, which is basically just get challenged a little bit but still stay far from failure. And after that, if you want more warm-ups, you can just do what I would call just like a basically get a touch on a heavier weight set, which would be maybe 80 to 90% of your working weight for a couple reps. It will be more challenging, but it will kind of give you a feel of that close to working weight without fatiguing you before you do your first set. So let's get it. All right, so pretty straightforward here. Basically, the technique style I'm going for is full control. I'm not going slow-mo, overly slow or anything like that, but I do want to completely limit any bouncing. So pausing at the bottom briefly will help with that. And basically my goal is just to gently tap my chest and not use a ton of bounce out of the bottom. So get into the first set in a second here, and you'll kind of see it in action. Okay, weaker than I thought I'd be. Very rarely do I fail a rep on bench, let alone on the first set. I usually just stop at 0, maybe 1 RIR, so that's good to know. This whole thing is kind of an experiment, so my strength is not what I'm used to. I'm always down about 1 or 2 reps, I've noticed, from usual strength levels. So this will take a little bit of trial and error, but it's kind of fun to document the process. So the set felt good. I definitely felt like I hit a wall at the end there that I couldn't grind through, but I gave it an honest shot. It's pretty much all I can do. It's so annoying at a home gym too, because it's like literally everything's plate loaded. When you fail a rep, it's like you're just loading even more. I can't wait to have my detached garage or barn gym, and I can just load up on selectorized stuff. All right, so during my rest time, we're gonna go through a quick Q&A. Actually, you can't see me at all. There we go. Pretty much good there. So now my phone's about to die. Can't keep my battery sorted. Let's see what we got. So first question. What do you think about the studies showing that fueling in muscles isn't correlated with activation? I think that's, the more you think about it, the more sense it makes, where the sensation of a feel doesn't necessarily mean you're actually getting sufficient tension there. And a lot of the time, just mechanical tension itself doesn't necessarily give a very strong sensation. So there's a lot of times where you can get a potent set in, like legit 2 failure with the prime mover, and you don't really feel anything. I think preacher curls are a great example of that, where you can just look at your biceps and see that they're contracting, just understanding basic anatomy. Obviously your biceps are the prime mover there, and you can basically go through the full set without actually feeling that much of a sensation in the biceps. So quick little example there, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the time you can create a sensation without tension. So they're going to be correlated in a lot of cases, but you can absolutely have either one without the other, and one doesn't necessarily mean that the other is present. So good question. I do want to do some supersets today. I've been sprinkling these back in. I used to kind of hate supersets, and I still don't like them from like a personal preference standpoint. But what I find is that just for me personally, the one thing that's going to burn me out quickly in the gym is when my rest times just take a little bit too long. I know this probably isn't the best looking shot, but I'm going to adjust the tripod here. So what I'll have to do a lot of the time is I don't necessarily have to superset, but sometimes I like to just reduce my rest times. So let's get on this thing here and just get right into it. Half the time I don't even warm up on row variations. I notice for pull-ups and pull-downs, I usually get some form of warm-up in, but for rows like this, I always feel fine without it for whatever reason. Not a ton of major joints involved, to a large extent, at least on trap-dominant rows. We'll see how this goes with the chest support. I might completely crush my mic, but we'll have to see. I might have to lean back a little and kind of modify my technique. Is this gonna work? Should be fine. I think that worked. Oh, the mic's totally slipping off. There we go. That should be good. Let's get this thing flipped around. All right, how are we looking here? Can't really see me. There it is. Oh no, just the beautiful flannel. There we go. So, good feeling set. I feel totally fine not warming up on them. Kind of a personal preference thing. I don't necessarily recommend that. But yeah, what I was saying before is that, like, for myself personally, I noticed that when I'm getting bored of my sessions or when I'm feeling like I'm dreading going into the gym, it's almost always correlated with just taking too long of rest times. And my sessions are just dragging out. I'm losing focus. So shortening the rest times a little, maybe to 2.5 minutes between sets at the minimum, maybe 3 minutes at the max, kind of that range. Low enough to keep me focused, keep the sessions efficient, but a long enough rest time to keep it mostly optimal. So I believe I got a question about that in the Q&A, but that's probably what I'll kind of go on as far as rest times. I don't know if I have too much more I'll cover in depth on that. Next question from Tommy. Is there such thing as being too jacked? There is, and that's why I stopped the Road to 18-inch arm series. Next question. I'll just go through them in order for the most part. Training lower body less to maximize upper body growth. So it's kind of based on your schedule. Like if you have 4 days per week to train and you want to maximize your upper body growth, you can make the case that training your upper body 3 times a week and maybe doing your legs once on the road and sprinkling in some other leg work would be fine. If you want to maximize it, that might be the way to go. But even then, you can get such good growth on just a regular twice-a-week frequency split with moderate volume amounts. As long as your exercise selection, your technique, and your intensity is good, the rest is kind of just up for experimentation. But I mean, like, if I had to, let's say I got paid $1 million if I was to maximize my upper body growth, I probably would just do upper body more than legs and reduce my leg work in order to do that. If I had like 1 year to maximize upper body growth, and if I hit my genetic potential for rate of growth in 1 year, I got $1 million, then yeah, I probably would do that. So good question, but it's an interesting one to think about. And I think one thing that we all can do a lot better of in the fitness industry, myself included, is not conform so much to what is trending or consensus or just popular at the moment. And I think we need more individuality basically in bodybuilding and in lifting. I think too many people just feel like they have to do something because the quote unquote authorities, and one of them is no longer really much of an authority, I'd say, kind of say you have to do something. So you see that with fitness fads all the time, but yeah, you can have some fun, and bodybuilding doesn't have to be all super serious, and you can still make good gains that way. So yeah, maybe something I'll go a little bit more in depth on in the future. I could see myself like, I've done a lot of videos where I just talk to the camera with a couple bullet points on my phone or laptop. And I've done a lot of videos where I'll do like my voiceovers and actually script it out. And basically with those, I just lock myself in a room, pick a topic that I have thoughts on that I want to kind of let come to the surface, and I'll sit there for like an hour and just write out a whole like 25-minute video script. And that's fun. And I think that's one of those topics that would fit well for that video. So let's get into some bench again. See what I can do here. All right. Beauty of a Smith machine, huh? I've got a bunch of people asking me what brand it is. The truth is, I don't even know. It's just like, it's a super old commercial grade machine. It's a super nice machine, but it's definitely discontinued. All right, let's see it. It's amazing how much harder that is for me. Just going with a quote-unquote close grip feels so much different. I've trained like moderate to wide for so long. It's so humbling to switch little things up like that. But it's good too. It trains a weakness, and just, it's something new mentally. All right, let's see what else we got. So while I can never set this up right. All right, there is the dollar store mic commencer. There he is. So a couple things. This beautiful flannel you're seeing from Barbell Apparel, check them out. Link in my description. You can see my entire collection, anything I wear in these videos, including the shorts, although we're kind of moving out of short season. But unreal to be wearing one of these in the fall. New color, got the crimson red, absolute beauty. Barbell is doing their free hoodie sale. Sweet, fitted, not like tight fitted, but like tapered cotton hoodies. Absolutely beautiful. You get a free one anytime you spend $99 or more on their website, and it stacks too. So if you spend $198, $297, etc., and so on, you get a free hoodie for every $99 you spend. They're beautiful. You've been seeing me wear them in basically all my recent videos because I pretty much wear them every day regardless. So Barbell Apparel, check them out. Great sponsor for the channel. Absolutely love those guys and love their stuff. So next question. Any other hobbies other than the gym? No. I would say the gym definitely takes up a lot of my mental focus and energy. Not that I can't have any other hobbies, because I do. I would say the hobbies that I do have, I am getting into fishing. I have been for a little bit now. Super fun. Mostly been doing freshwater, but I went out kayak fishing in the ocean with my family and my dad more specifically last week. Super fun. Got a striper. Super cool. Definitely into hockey just in general. I play once a week just for fun. I enjoy that. I play a lot of chill. I'm hit or miss in chill. I'm good on like online head-to-head 5v5, like play as your whole team. In World of Chill, where you're locked into a position, I'm not as good. But I'm still trying to like figure out team strategies and stuff. It's tough when you're playing with drop-ins. And I enjoy watching hockey too. Definitely love all things hockey. Always have kind of been that way. Other than that, I really like camping. So like going up on like camping and fishing trips, that's always fun. Mildly into like hiking and that kind of stuff, I would say. It's pretty much all I can think of off the top of my head. There's definitely a few other things, but yeah, that's the gist of what I'm interested in, I'd say. And got a bunch more actually, but I'll save this for post rows. Here we go. All right. Such a sick machine, huh? Just another good marketplace find. Maxicam is the brand, and they are discontinued too. All right, did I get it right? Kinda. So, I'll put it over here. Let's see. Next question. I can never get this thing right, huh? How's that? Sick. So, let's see. How to progress at OHP in mid-intermediate phase. I would say the number one thing that just is a prerequisite to progression is patience. Overhead presses do take a long time to progress in terms of performance, and it's just a very strict lift. So there's not really going to be any false progression that you can kind of like count as progression in the short term. It just takes time. So first off, patience, and just look for signs of progress. So let's say you're doing 135 pounds for 6 reps on a standing military press, and the first time you hit that, it's like an absolute grinder. That final rep, you can hardly get it. That's your peak. That's your best. That is your all-time PR to that date. If you're able to replicate that, I would say even matching that in some cases is a good thing. Like a lot of the time you'll notice after you hit a PR, you might even like lose a rep next time, and then more consistently you'll be able to hit it, and then you can add a rep. So look for things like that 6th rep getting a little bit easier, and then eventually you feel like you could even just attempt a 7th rep, even if you know you're not going to get it. Then eventually you complete 6 and you're like, I might actually be able to get 7. Probably not, but there's an honest chance. That's a good sign of progress. And then let's say you feel like you could get 7, and then you try it and you almost get it, and then maybe the next time you get it. Like, those are all good signs of progress in the short term. But overall, if you're just talking about overhead press and general progression, you want to make sure your technique is as good as possible. If you find that you're losing balance or you don't feel very stable, switching to another variation can even help, as like counterintuitive as that might seem for progressing a specific lift. Sometimes having stabler variations can just give you more progression potential, even though I am still kind of a fan of a regular military press standing anyways. That's pretty much it. It's really no different than any other lift. And yeah, that is all. And don't forget to train your isolations too, to get your delts to grow all around and potentially target any kind of blind spots if you feel like you're plateaued at least. All right, so a couple more good questions queued up. Let's get into some bench here. So like that right there, that's a solid set on bench. Definitely 0 RIR, but not super exhausting. So that's usually a good proximity to failure. That is ideal, kind of a happy medium of super intense, but not like overkill fatigue and ruin the rest of the presses for the day. All right, got one more set on rows, and then we can move on. There it is. All right, so let's go through a couple more questions. Face ID just doesn't work anymore. Oh, we're getting to the juicy part. Okay, I'll start with this one. So the road to 18-inch arms was 1 year ago. In hindsight, would you have done things any different? So in hindsight, there's nothing I would change. I think it went perfect. Not to like brag about it, but I'm just saying, look, how could I have expected better progress? It went really well. I trained super hard. Everything was it all just worked out. So I assumed it would take a bit longer. I assumed it would take a little bit more trial and error. There was some experimentation in terms of like what I did after my main stuff, so like creatures and Smith JMs, but as far as like general volume and like the main movements and the frequency, it all just kind of worked out really well. Like it's almost like all of the time I spent plateaued gave me an idea of what I really needed. And I think I kind of just hit the nail on the head and happened to just end up knowing what didn't work. And then just from that, I knew kind of what I needed to do. So the exercise selection, I had a pretty good head start heading into that. And frequency, I mean, you can't really go wrong with twice a week in a lot of cases. Volume is lower than I would have guessed and lower than I think just most people would have guessed anyways. But the funny thing about volume is we like to view it as its own isolated variable, but we have to remember it's secondary to whatever that volume is actually being allocated to. So when you're doing something like, if you just ignore volume entirely, if you were to say, we're going to take this one person and he's just going to train all out on preacher curls twice a week for 6 months, giving it his all, regardless of how many sets he does. is that person going to have big biceps 6 months later? I would say yes, because you just can't really get around that. Your body doesn't really know if it's like 1 set or 10 sets per session, or 3 sets or 20 sets per week. Like ultimately, if those sets are super intense and you're hitting your muscle every couple of days, like it's just going to grow. So I'm not like promoting HIT or super low volume or anything like that, because I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I do take a more low to moderate volume approach, I would say, in most cases. But to act like low volume isn't going to work, because it's just like not beating the muscle to a pulp. When you do that in practice, it doesn't necessarily check out, is how I'd kind of leave that. So yeah, I'll leave that question there. Let's do some rows, and then we'll go into some more stuff. All right, glad that's over with. No, I'm kidding. I actually like doing those. Mic almost came off again. There we go. Let's see. What do we got next? All right, so Smith bench, complete. Seated cable row, not doing that. Did T-bars. Smith BTNs. Then we got strict hammer curls. Then we've got incline pushdowns and calf raises. So we'll go into Smith BTNs next, and we'll go from there. So for these Smith BTNs, I do like back support now that I'm just stronger than I was when I first started doing them. I just go 75 degrees in the Smith. I find that it's just kind of that sweet spot where you're upright enough, but yeah, it works well because it still gives you kind of clearance to get the bar behind your head. All right, how's that looking? Kind of just prime right there, huh? All right, so I told you a few minutes ago, probably longer than that at this point, that I would give you some of my progressions that aren't necessarily just strength and performance related on these. So the main things I like to focus on are obviously progression in terms of weight and reps, but I like to focus on overall positioning. So how much do you have to compensate to get the bar down? How much do you have to raise your chest in order to get the rep up? So I like to say, am I able to keep my torso in a stable position and go through that movement? Am I able to have control and get all the way down to touch my traps? And eventually, am I able to maintain my shoulder position and get incredibly strong in the movement and tap the bar to my traps and keep it paused there without having to compensate at all in any way? So I'll go through a warm-up just to kind of get a feel for it and get my shoulders primed, and go from there. So I have actually reduced the weight I'm using on these down to a plate per side, which on the Smith is 150 pounds, kind of a moderate amount, I would say. I just found myself getting too weak when I was going heavier. So I was up at 160, reps were just a little bit too low for my liking, so I bumped it down. And I would say that this feels kind of like the sweet spot. I'm typically getting, as of last week off the top of my head, I want to say it was 5 reps with good technique and everything, all the way down, doing a brief pause at the bottom, keeping my torso in position. And my goal is basically just to recreate that, add reps where possible, and then once this feels light enough on the first couple of reps, I'll take a weight jump from there. So let's get it. Grip width for this is actually the same as my close grip bench, but since this is a deeper range of motion, a narrower grip is always going to be more preferred in my opinion. There we go. It's a solid set. It's about what I'm looking for. Those plus ones are going to come eventually. So, like I said about the other person asking about overhead press, stay patient. Keep building your foundation, and those reps will come. So, if we're going to move on to some of these next questions here, the next one, this is where it gets a little juicy. Do you think the dismantling of Mike Israetel's dissertation will actually change lifting culture? So this one is kind of tricky to answer because there's going to be lifting culture, which is going to be like me, guys like me, people that follow this channel and similar channels. Like there's people that lift as like something lower on their priority list where they're like focused on something else, who just want to be in shape. And a lot of those people are people that probably follow like Mike Israetel, Athlean-X, etc. People that are just like, get me to a popular channel, just somebody that tells me something to do, and I'll just follow that. And I don't think that will change. If you look at like Athlean-X, that channel's still kicking around as far as I know. And not to say it's all bad information. Like at the very least, it's like you're getting in the gym and training hard, following basic principles for the most part with some gimmicks. Like a lot of people will get generally in good shape from that. But as far as lifting culture goes, yeah, I think this is going to open a lot of people's eyes. People that do take lifting more seriously, and it is a much higher thing on their priority list. So people like me, again, people that follow this channel and channels similar to this, that are much more like involved in lifting and really just enjoy doing it more as a hobby, I would say, than just like routine, if that makes sense. And I do think that will change things quite a bit. Even if like what he did for his PhD is not directly relevant to the stuff he talks about now, it's at least going to just like strip back just the constant appeal to authority that those bigger channels use based on their qualifications, their the size of their audience, the views they get, all that kind of stuff. So I think it will do lifting culture good. And I think ultimately it's just a reminder to everybody that there really aren't any experts in this field and in a lot of fields too. And I think it's just important to remember that your own instincts and your own brain is something you shouldn't overlook. We all have common sense and logic. It's just a matter of if you feel comfortable using it. And that's not to say that there aren't people that are more educated or more experienced than others. And I think you can absolutely learn a lot of information from people that have more experience than you. But there's no heroes in the fitness industry. And that's kind of what I'd leave it at. So let's go on to whatever my next lift is. I think it was hammer curls up next, if I remember correctly. It's so tough. Like usually I know all my workouts off the top of my head, but with 5 different full body sessions, I'm always getting confused. Actually, you know what? The next one is unilateral, so I'm going to do that on its own. So those Smith BTNs, another set in a second here. All right. Whoa. The last one's so tough. You're just fighting so hard to keep your back flat. Whoa. It's like if I just arch a little bit, it would fly up, but it's just that fight and learning to control as you're going through that final rep. It's like that on so many lifts, like quad biased barbell or Smith squats, behind the neck presses, any press in general. You just want to arch, or any squat where you want to shoot your hips back. So it's tough. It's tougher on presses too, because there's no support. Like, you can support your hips with a hack or a pendulum, but you can't really do it on presses. Obviously there's Larsons and feet up, but that's not even, it's good, but it's not perfect. So a lot of it does come down to general control, especially when you're trying to get, you could say, more out of less weight or whatever. All right, so the whole Mike Isertel thing. I mean, generally, it's almost tough because I'm almost so bored with the fitness industry in general that I haven't even watched Solomon's video on that yet. Like, everybody's talking about it, everybody's watching it, everybody's commenting on it. So from what I can tell, it's a great video. And from the stuff I've heard, it is probably something that has its own valid critiques. But I just, like, as somebody that's followed him for a while and kind of seen what's gone on, it's like there's just nothing that's surprising me. So I just can't find myself interested enough to sit down and watch it. With that said, I probably will still watch it at some point, but I can't bring myself to, like, want to spend an hour and a half of my time doing it. But I mean, yeah, at some point I'm going to. Probably the next time I have a longer ride or something, I'll put it on. So let's see. Next question. Do muscle groups hit later and workouts grow less than muscle groups trained first? In my experience, it's all equal. It's all equal. I think this comes from Paul Carter. I think this is one of his beliefs, where the fresher you are, the higher rates of force production you can have, the better motor unit recruitment you can have. Makes sense in theory, on paper. In practice, if we're talking like for the same muscle group or this a similar movement pattern, yeah, I mean, you're going to get more of what you do first. But if you're doing like a full body session and it's a reasonable approach, the final lift that you do isn't going to be less potent than what you do earlier on in the session. Like, not just to base my entire opinion on my own anecdote, but like, for example, I have a good anecdote, the road to 18-inch arms, where I got 18-inch arms, up half an inch in 6 months. I was doing my arms last every single session. Never did them before anything ever. It was always the last thing I did. So it's just hard to do that and then act like that really matters. I would say, if we're just talking like, if somebody's not getting much out of the lifts they're doing at the end of the session, what are the reasons for that in all likelihood? If my life depended on it, I would say people just get bored and lose focus by the end of the session. And I'm not saying that's not a valid reason to put stuff earlier in your session. I'm just saying if you can understand that's the cause for it, and you can just understand that when you get to the point in the workout you just need to make yourself train hard again, then you could probably just leave things as is. But if you're genuinely getting bored and you hate being in the gym that long, one, just change things up so you don't have to be in the gym that long, and two, if you have to, just do arms earlier and it is what it is. But I think from a physical perspective, it's probably not required. A couple more good questions in the queue too. Actually, let me refresh this thing. It's been a while. All right, we got a couple more new questions. Do you ever recommend double progression, or is the rep goal system still best for most? I mean, they're both good. Ultimately, your progression scheme doesn't even necessarily do you a lot of favors. It's more so just pick one that doesn't hold you back. That's the main thing with progression schemes. Like if you're following something where you're doing like a static double progression where all of your sets have to hit a certain rep threshold in order for you to increase the weight, that's an example of something that is holding you back. You're unable to push your intensity on the first set because you hit a random arbitrary rep count and you're saving that energy for subsequent sets. I'm not a huge fan of that, so just pick something that tells you and gives you some form of indication that you're ready to go up in weight, and pick something that doesn't actively hold back your intensity, your progression in some way, shape, or form. And that's kind of all progression schemes are. It's basically taking this presumed rate of progression and just adding organization to what's already going to be happening anyways. Your progression isn't what gives you progress, it's what allows you to read the progression that would be naturally occurring and actually maximize what's in front of you. So that's pretty much what it is, regardless of the progression you're following. Like even if you're a beginner following 5x5, that is still the reason for that is because you're making the reason why it works is you're making such quick adaptations that if you were just to dilly-dally back at a certain weight, you're going to hold yourself back. So it says, all right, if you're hitting 5 reps across a few different sets, you have the green light to go up in weight, and you should go up in weight just based on how quick your growth is going to be. So that's why it ends up working quite well in a lot of cases for at least some period of time. But generally that's what progression schemes are. They're kind of one of those weird things where it's like starting to focus on them can just open your eyes to so much of training organization over a period of time. So you could say it's a type of periodization. But if you get too wrapped up in it, then it will kind of be your downfall because the upsides of progression are limited. It's more just helping you avoid some of the pitfalls, I would say. So I personally still just follow like a variation of a dynamic double progression. Usually when my first set hits a certain amount of reps, I'll just add weight for everything. And that works pretty well. And if you ever need to change it, then you can, but that's a good default. And it works really well. You don't necessarily need to graduate from that. All right, done on that. And this thing's still recording. I like it. We're at 48 minutes. Wow. Okay, that's way longer than I thought it would be. I'm a chit chatter, at least when I'm by myself, huh? All right, a couple more lifts to get through. So up next, we've got strict hammer curls. Let me get my Sprinter's treadmill out of the way. Normal treadmills are so annoying. They only go up to like 12. I needed something that went up to 18, so I had to get this thing. What am I even using for weight on these? There's 40 on there now. Actually, it's probably about that. You'll warm up now. Actually, I don't think that thing's even in the way. All right, so this is the strict cable hammer curl. It is a misunderstood, misused, misapplied lift, and it's a hidden gem of a lift, but you have to understand how it works or you're just going to mess it up. You have to take a different approach here than you would for most other lifts. Basically, a couple of things to know on this thing. Put this up a little so you can see me talk. The strict hammer curl is basically just, it's such a simple explanation, but you really have to like get it to click to execute it properly. you're just training elbow flexion. I know that sounds very basic, but you're not trying to complete the rep. So if you're doing a preacher curl, a dumbbell curl where you get your elbow up so you can complete the rep, this isn't that. So it's unconventional. It's not what I normally talk about. When you're doing a lift like this, you're just training as much range of motion as you can, and lifting your elbow up to get the weight higher without actually bending your elbow defeats the purpose. Your goal is to use that to your advantage. Place your shoulder firmly into the pad or into the post, drive your elbow in, and from here, contract as much as you can. I don't care if it's only to, like, say a 70 or 80 degree elbow bend. It doesn't matter. Whether you get here or here, it doesn't matter. Just get up as high as you can, fight at the top for a full second or two. If it's not budging, come back down into a controlled eccentric, come back up as high as you can. Get as many reps as you can where you get clearly above parallel, forearm relative to the floor, and then from there, 1 to 3 max effort partials, like not partials, max effort partials, like involuntarily failing. And that's how you know you've got a good stimulus from the set. So I'll do a couple sets here and we'll see how that all works in action. I just use wrist cuffs on here. I just find it easier than grabbing the cable. So let's get it. And that's a set. It's tough. I'm like getting lightheaded from it. It's so intense. But that's basically it. It's as simple as that. You can see I'm not trying to go for getting the satisfaction of getting the weight up and even just lifting I'm tired. It's pretty wild. I'm just fighting as hard as I can. You're just trying to activate as many elbow flexors as you can. It doesn't matter where the failure point is as long as you're hitting that failure point. And that's it. So you have to fight your instincts. Most people don't do this correctly because it's unconventional, it's different. It's something that takes a different approach. So when I'm doing unilateral work, I'll usually just rest enough between the sets to catch my breath. But when you're training one side, the other rests, and vice versa. All right. All right, that's that. So a couple new questions. I want to get to some of the older ones first. First come, first serve. What are your thoughts on having cardio in a bodybuilding program while bulking? I'm a huge fan of it. Making up those extra calories isn't that hard. Well, obviously it depends on how much you're running, but if you're just doing like a low to moderate amount of running, very easy to make up those calories and will keep you super healthy and keep you in shape. So I'm a fan of some form of cardio during bulking for sure. Calorie loss isn't a concern. Making up those calories is so easy. Just be strict with your diet and you're good. Thoughts on starting a bulk from 15% body fat? Totally fine. Yeah, if you want to go up to 20%, just bulk there. That's all good. Most of the time with bulking and cutting, it's just about like going in your preference as long as it's not an extreme in either direction, and you're pretty much good. The more fluffy you are, the less strict you have to be with diet in most cases. On the eve of hockey coming back, who do you have winning the cup this year? I have no idea. I don't think there's a single team that's obvious. Obviously, you could say the Panthers, but after Barkov's was an ACL injury, that's brutal. He's out for the year. Like, I mean, it's at 7 to 9 months, so technically he could be back in time for playoffs, but how good's he going to be? I'm not a huge believer in teams being able to win a cup without their first-line center. I just can't picture that. So the Panthers are kind of the obvious pick. The injury's the wild card, and it's really just opening the door for Edmonton. It would be kind of embarrassing if McDavid doesn't win a cup within the next couple of years. Not to say that Edmonton's management has set them up for a nice cup run, because they're just kind of an average roster at best, and then they just have McDavid and Draisaitl. So I would. It's hard not to pick Florida, but I still think Edmonton is probably the favorite for this year, I would say. It's tough to say, though. I'm trying to think of like wild card, like sneaky good teams. I'm going to pull up the standings real quick. And of course, the NHL just completely changes their app for no reason. Let's see. Tampa, kind of over the hill. Can't pick them. Washington's not good enough. They're just a regular season team. Same with Winnipeg, also not good enough. Dallas could do it. They're very good. Vegas is very good too. Colorado's also very good, but they've got depth issues. Toronto, I have no idea. Carolina's not good enough. That's all I can see. Yeah, nobody else is good enough. It's kind of weird. It's like there's so much talent, but I wouldn't say there's a team that like is screaming cup champ to me. All right, let's get it. Intensity is present, but no progress on some lifts. How to stimulate muscles properly for growth. So this is going to be very lift dependent and very individual dependent, just to clarify on that. But I would say, generally speaking, if you're training very hard and not seeing growth, you probably, I'd say for most people, just want to look at how your technique is holding up at the end of your set. That's ultimately going to be key. If your technique is falling apart as you get to those potent reps, that's usually going to be what holds you back. So there can be times where you're training too hard and you're just doing as much as you can with good technique, and then you're continuing to try and push needlessly and you're just kind of getting extra fatigue for no reason. That's not very common, I would say, but it is a thing. And if you're one of those people, it's better to just hold back a little bit and keep training hard, but don't go so overkill. And then I'd say a lot of the time, technique will fall apart, right before you get to the point where you want to get to. So if you're doing like a squat and trying to target your quads, usually when you're just getting into the challenging potent rep for your quads, the hips will want to take over so your body can preserve energy. The key is to fight through that, keep the knees forwards, keep the chest a little higher, get through that, and that's going to be key. So those are the main things. I'd also say if you're earlier on in your training, a lot of the time it is just not testing yourself, not pushing your limits in terms of the weight that you're using. There's going to be a lot of times where you lift way too heavy for a given lift, but there's going to be a lot of times where if you're worried or scared to go up in weight, or you don't feel like you're ready to go up in weight, a lot of the time you just need to try that new weight. You realize you are ready for it. When you come back to try it again, you already have your foot in the door with it. You've already got a taste for it. You're already adapting to that new weight. Then you can start to get better and better with that weight, and you can kind of just keep following that progression from there. So obviously very simple stuff, but sometimes it's easy to kind of get caught up in overthinking things in some ways, where a lot of the time it's just as simple as like push outside your comfort zone, try things that you feel like you might not be able to do. When you try it, not only do you learn that, but you also adapt to what you just tried, and you'll be better at it the next time you come back and give it another go. And that is all. All right, 2 sets of that. Gonna go into some incline push downs. Now I have to move the treadmill because I have to put the big boy plates on for this one. Get those 100-pounders on there. And all my numbers are faded, so that's 16, 15, 14, 13. All right, so the incline push down. Underrated lift, just a highly stable variation of a push down. Very good for intermediate plus lifters. Kind of just like a sneaky good tricep lift. It's like the way I do these is kind of like a nice happy medium between a JM press and a regular push down. If you don't want to be so extreme with the JM press where you really are getting a lot of shoulder movement, you can kind of tone it down a little bit in this. And it's a nice movement. So let me move this thing, get the bench in there, and get after it. So main cues and setup tips for this lift. You want to have the cable itself roughly parallel with the back of the bench. If anything, you want it to be slightly lower than what the parallel setting would be. So for this right here is, it's got a splinter with this paint, that's nice. Right there is kind of the sweet spot. This might even be a tad high, but I'm going to give it a try. If it's like perfectly parallel with like a forearm's distance away from the bench. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this, by the way. So when you're right here at peak resistance, if the cable's parallel with the bench, you're good. If the cable is angled slightly downwards, that's even more length and biased, and that's usually what feels pretty good on these in my opinion and experience. So we'll see. So how's that set up? Beautiful. So I have this flat bar. It's from Granite Fitness, not John Meadows' company, which I believe is Granite Supplements. It's kind of like a smaller little gym company, gym manufacturer, whatever. So on these, I go narrower grip. You can really use whatever grip you like. A 90-degree little V-bar should work fine. And what I do is I tuck my elbows a little bit back and gently graze the cable right on my shirt, just like this. Not enough to create a bunch of friction and limit me, but just enough to know I'm keeping it nice and close and actually getting full resistance throughout the whole range of motion. If I'm going up like this, making it way harder at the bottom and way easier at the top right here. So keep your elbows tucked, keep it tight, keep it close. It'll make it a little bit more length and biased. When your forearm is perpendicular to the cable, that's peak resistance. And you can see here when the elbows are back, peak resistance is at a longer tricep length than holding it way out here, where it's a more obtuse angle, if that's the right term. I didn't really pay attention in school. So let's get these cats off and get those 100-pounders. I'm kidding, these are 45-pound plates. I'm actually curious to see how these go, since I tried doing incline skull crushers yesterday, and my triceps are actually sore. I didn't really realize that until I did this movement in that warm-up set. So I have no idea how these will go. I was getting 6 reps, I want to say, on each set last time. That's actually the B-roll I used in my last intro to this series video. Camera's a little high, isn't it, huh? And I don't know if I'm going to be better, since this is my second time doing the movement now and I'm going to have rust off, or since I'm still sore from literally training triceps all out yesterday, if I'm going to be hindered. So who knows? Let's just test it out and see how it goes. All right, so I think that was 6.5. Basically, felt easier than last time, so the adaptations are overriding the fatigue, which I guess is kind of a neat little thing to learn. Kind of just a one-off, since it's the first time I'm doing this movement in a while, but that felt pretty good. I didn't have the energy to even attempt a 7th rep last time, so some form of progress. And yeah, it is what it is there. So felt good. Felt like I didn't feel like I was particularly weak or held back from yesterday or anything. Next question: what are your predictions for top 5 in the Open Olympia? So I don't follow open bodybuilding anymore. I used to when I was younger, when I was first getting into lifting. I don't follow it at all. I'm so far removed from anything with PEDs, and it's not that I hate these guys or don't respect them. It's just that it's like a foreign sport to me in all reality. So I just don't really care that much. Biggest chest training mistakes and how to fix them. That's an interesting question. I would actually say that the chest is one of those areas where you can mess a lot of things up and still see good progress. It's more so just about avoiding nagging injuries needlessly. So the pecs are a muscle where, if we're talking ego lifting, it's one of the top few areas where people are going to ego lift. Obviously, powerlifting is very big. Testing your bench 100 max is very big. So people are just innately more concerned with their pressing strength than anything. So they're going to have more form deviations that allows for a short-term increase in strength, or at least a displacement of heavier weights being used. So it's normal to excessively arch. It's normal to focus hugely on retraction and shorten your range of motion, go the super wide grip, basically just train like a power lifter. So the biggest mistake, I would say, is what's going to be causing the most nagging pains, injuries, and overuse. I would say that is going to be forcing retraction. You actually want to allow some protraction to happen as you press, just like you would on a push-up, a dip, a ring push-up, and something that doesn't have you pinned down with a bench below your back. That's why you'll always notice that even if push-ups, dips, ring push-ups are like kind of lighter, easier movements, maybe aside from ring push-ups, but you'll notice that they just feel better, just in terms of like instinct, mind-muscle connection, like they just feel better. It's because you're actually allowing your shoulder girdle to kind of wrap around and protract like this. You're actually getting more range of motion at your pec, but you're also not forcing your humerus to like press without the scap supporting it from behind. So protracting keeps your shoulders healthy, gives you a little bit more range of motion with the pecs. Are you going to get more gains from that? Maybe, like slightly, but it's going to keep your shoulders healthy. So I'd say that's the number one thing. Number two would just be excessive arch and leg drive. And number three, I'd say, would just be bouncing the bar off your chest. You're not necessarily going to get hurt from doing that, but you're just needlessly getting more fatigue and using more weight than you need to, and you're learning bad habits in the meantime. So it's probably not ideal. That's what I'd say as far as big pec training mistakes. Let's see. Do you use any caffeine or pre-workout before your workout? No, this will be 6 years in December of not having any caffeine. So it's honestly really hard. It might sound very like mild or silly or not that big of a deal, but from basically having caffeine, to me, is instant workout motivation. It's motivation pill. That's what it is in my mind. Like when I used to feel tired or not want to work out, if you just have 200 milligrams of caffeine, like you are going to want to work out as long as your tolerance isn't crushed. And mine never was. It's really hard to lift when you don't have that. So I'm proud of what I've done, and I would say that's probably the biggest hurdle I've had to overcome, or one of the biggest hurdles I've had to overcome in my lifting career, is just being able to lift super intensely without caffeine. It's so much harder than it sounds when you're used to doing it with caffeine. So that's, I'd say, my biggest disadvantage as a lifter is just not having caffeine. I'll get into like some of the reasons, but I do want to do a set first. Forgot how fun those are. Just such a solid lift. Like when you're like intermediate level strength and you've only done standing push downs, and it's like you're just kind of fighting, like keeping your abs in place, and like having it just you get to a point where like a push down as a beginner feels great. Like you're getting sore, you're feeling a pump and burn in your triceps. The weight you're lifting is like a fraction of your body weight. And then you get to that point where you're an intermediate and you're doing push downs with like 40% of your body weight, and it just feels wonky. When you try an incline push down, you feel like a beginner again in a good way. So it's such a fun lift. Stability for stronger guys, I think, is so key in bodybuilding. So as far as caffeine goes, I started taking caffeine. I sound like a drug addict. I started consuming caffeine when I was like, I don't know, 18 or 19. And this is back in like 2018 or something, 2019 or whatever. And it's just an instant boost. And I never took that much. Like I was never somebody that had like those crazy drinks they have now that are 300 milligrams plus the caffeine. To me, that's still nuts. But I would have like 50 milligrams of caffeine, and then I eased that into 75, 100, 150. Eventually I was drinking a regular Celsius, and that got up to 200. And one day I was actually Thanksgiving of 2019. I didn't sleep at all. This is when I was training in person. I was at my brother's house, stayed up super late, went home, my roommates were partying or something. We stayed up late playing a video game, whatever. And then I couldn't fall asleep, had a 6 a.m. client or something the next morning, slept for 2 hours, had a coffee, and then out of nowhere, I just had this what I didn't know what it was, but it was a panic attack, just like a general anxiety attack where your head kind of spins, your heart starts racing, and you just feel like you're falling or something. And then I was like, oh, that's weird. I was like, I wonder if that was from not sleeping or not sleeping plus the caffeine. Then I had more caffeine the next day, pre-workout, worked out as usual. After the workout, I'm driving home and I have another one. And I was like, that's kind of weird. It's probably from the caffeine. So I just, I tried it one more time. I had 2 sips and then I felt it kind of coming on again, which was just kind of weird. So I think it's, I think I do have an underlying anxiety issue or whatever. And I think caffeine just it puts you in this hyper alert state where you, just the way, I never liked the way that caffeine made me feel aside from the workout motivation basically. So I think it exposed some form of underlying anxiety or just put me in this crazy fight or flight situation that I just don't like to be in. And eventually when you're in that for too long, doing it too many days in a row, you just start freaking out a little. So I cut it cold turkey and it's been great ever since. But yeah, that is pretty much it. So one more set here, then we'll move on. All right. Good on those. It's a tough set. So I think calf raises is all I've got left. Let me set this thing up. There we go. All right, so a couple more lifts. Actually, I think we just got one more lift. Here we go. Gym looks better than the laundry room, huh? Oh, the battery's about to die. Let me swap this thing out. Actually, I'll leave it as is for now. I'll edit if needed. So, for these calf raises, basically what I've been doing here is loading up as much weight as I can possibly hold on this thing, and then just putting a band on for more resistance. This thing is a nice-ish machine. The problem is it is a 30-degree angle, so your weights get cut in a fraction of what's actually on there, and it's super annoying. So at some point I'm going to have to upgrade this, whether it's a leg press, a hack, a pendulum, whatever it is. That's probably what I'll get. And if I eventually have like some detached barn gym, I'll probably just get a separate calf raise too. I'm going to get like a Cybex rotary or something. All right. is that. So that's one set there. Fun but challenging lift. All right, so a couple questions here. Before I even get into them, I'll talk about my technique and everything here. So when it comes to these calf raises, basically what I have found to be the sweet spot is going down until you feel a pretty deep stretch and then coming up above parallel, so above a 90-degree ankle, just enough to feel a mild-ish squeeze. You don't want to be limited by the squeeze to where you're going up so high that you're just in a weak position with your ankle, but you don't want to not come up high enough to where you're just doing tiny little partials in the bottom. So I've always found, not always, but recently found that go for a moderate to deep stretch, hang out there, control the whole time, come back up to a mild squeeze just above 90 degrees of ankle bend, and you're pretty much in a good spot from there. So next couple questions. Is knowledge of biomechanics useful for an intermediate lifter? For an intermediate, I would say yes. There's going to be some muscles that need it more than others, but I would say the intermediate stage is generally where you will just see how you responded to being a beginner. So when you're a beginner, you are just trying things out. You know nothing about yourself, your habits, the way you lift. When you're an intermediate, you figure out what your weaknesses are, whether it's maybe genetic or just what have you not done a good job of, and then you're kind of left with that end result. And then when you're an intermediate, that's basically taking your good but flawed project and making it well-rounded and making it advanced. So it's something that everybody has to go through. Obviously for myself, it was the very obvious neglect to arm work, forearms, and basically just getting them as big as I possibly could. Quads, which I just don't really care about, but I still didn't train them right before when I was intending to. And me becoming more advanced is basically just recognizing my flaws and working around that. So the Road to 18-inch arm series was me going from intermediate to slightly more advanced, I would say. So that is what I would focus on when it comes to biomechanics. Definitely important for areas, especially like the lats and the delts, I find. Understanding the functions of each muscle. So just general anatomy is super helpful. Like muscles like the traps, most people don't really know what the traps do. They think they just elevate your scaps, and that's kind of it. I'll probably discuss that in a future video when I do my shrug and my trap variations, but the traps are a little bit more complex than that, and you can definitely bias certain movements towards the lats, the traps, in either direction. So that kind of stuff, recognizing what muscle has been taking over from the other and learning the function of what your weaker area is and how to target that area, learning what your pitfalls are, what your bad habits are with technique. It's a fun process if you're into that kind of stuff. So biomechanics is definitely worth learning as you become more advanced. So I'll go through a couple more, but let me get my next set in here. All right. Those are fun, huh? I'm actually curious to see what happens with my calves. They're starting off at, I can actually pull up my measurements here, but I want to say they're 15.15 and then 15.2 inches. So don't hold me to the standards of my arms and neck, but I'm very curious to see what happens with them. Yeah, the last time I measured my calves, they were 15.15 on the right, 15.21 on the left. So tons of room for improvement, and I'm curious just to see if I can get them to like close to 16. I want to push beyond that, but I'm just curious to like make some noob gains again because my calves are not very well developed. So we'll move on to a couple more questions here. Do you ever change cutting pace during a cut? If so, is it planned or intuitive? Not really. I mean, it depends on the duration of the cut. For me personally, I just mini cut. If I ever was to do a moderate cut or a bigger cut, I would change the pace. I would start off aggressive, aiming to lose 2 pounds per week. The first week would be the exception, where it's probably going to be 3 or 4 pounds due to some water weight loss. Then I'd aim for 2 pounds of weight loss per week, or about 1 kilo or just under, for the following 3 to 5 weeks. And then from there, about 3/4 of a kilo or 1.5 pounds is the sweet spot until you get to that 10 or so week mark, depending on how lean you are. And then from there, anywhere between 0.5 kilo or 1 pound up to 0.75 kilos or 1.5 pounds is good for however long you want to cut from there. But it's basically a process that will kind of taper off in chunks. So generally speaking, a mini cut for me, in my definition, is going to be 3 to 6 weeks, just aiming to take the easy cut progress that's right in front of you. Just get in, get out, do it quick. Moderate would be anywhere from like 6 to 8 weeks, maybe up to 9. And then above that's going to be a more like legit, like you're committing to that cut and you're getting lean at that kind of like 10, 11 plus mark. Road to 28-inch quads when? Oh, I would, I'd have to get back to like, I'd have to do like road to 18-inch quads before I do that. No, in all reality, I haven't trained squat patterns in so long. I don't even remember how long it's been, but it's approaching probably a full year. And it's not something I'm concerned about because muscle memory is a real thing. So I could get my quads back to the size they were before pretty easily, probably within 2 months. I just have to get back to it. I've been wanting to go back to the commercial gym at some point. It's just a matter of figuring out how that works in my schedule. But it will be happening at some point where I actually do commit to getting bigger legs again. Starting off with calves, I've been doing my hinges. It's really just about the quads at this point. What are your thoughts on Show Me Gains, his training and natty status? I do follow him. I followed him recently. It was probably in the past month, so I can't give my full comment on him, but super impressive physique, trains super hard, just a legit lifter that I respect a ton from what I'm seeing. How can you tell muscular failure from technical failure, especially in a movement like barbell squats? So usually technical failure is a symptom of muscular failure if you're training as hard as you possibly can. The problem is sometimes technical failure is just, it can happen when you're not actually failing. So it's almost like technical laziness or giving up in a way where you're still training hard-ish, but you're not training maximally. So it's just a matter of like knowing what is your true limit of strength. So I would say get hyped up for a set, think about something that motivates you, turn your phone off, close your eyes, and just focus and visualize that set for a full minute or two before doing it. Find a song that hypes you up, like get in the zone, get hyped up, train like your life depends on it, and just see how far you can go so you understand what technical failure feels like. And that's pretty much my advice there. From that point, basically what you can do is use that as your reference point for knowing when you're actually hitting technical failure versus when you are just going into like technical failure because you want to avoid training the muscle as hard as you can. But generally speaking, if you are giving a max effort and you're unable to complete a rep with your desired technique, or just unable to complete the rep at all, you're at momentary muscular failure in the common definition, I would say. Let's do one more set here. and then I'm going to answer a couple more questions and we'll finish up. But I'm shocked the battery hasn't died. It's been blinking for like at least 10 minutes now. Calves are cooked, and I am training calves every day, so that's been fun. I've been doing it for like 2 weeks now. A couple more questions just to finish up here. Tracking rest periods, 2 to 3 minutes versus resting as long as you need. So I kind of touched on this at first, but I do want to go into a little bit more depth here just to give my full thoughts as briefly as I can. 2 to 3 minutes is a really good point to be at. It keeps it efficient. It keeps you focused. Resting as long as you need is optimal. So it's figuring out, are you able to make optimal progress and sustain your target rate of progress at 2 to 3 minutes, or do you need to rest longer? What I would do is, if you want to be efficient and you want to stay focused, keep everything at 2 to 3. When something plateaus, extend your rest time and see if that helps. And that way you're doing the least amount of rest time you need to total, but actually taking the longer rest times only where you need to. So you're being very conservative with it. And let's finish up with a good one, fun one. So, most underrated muscle for aesthetics. Underrated. I would say the traps. I would have to say the traps. Aesthetics, you can pose fine with small traps. You can look big on Instagram with the right angles, the right lighting, if you have big delts. But if we're talking aesthetics and you just want to look good in a relaxed state, it is absolutely your upper and mid traps. That's my answer. That's my very confident answer. Honorable mentions for underrated. So how far are they below what I perceive them to be at? I would say the calves, the neck, spinal erectors. That's what I'm leaving it at. So appreciate you guys watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next episode next week.